little bit of introduction here. My name is John Hobday. I'm from Raytheon, and but the real truth in the background of this, and you heard some of the stories earlier from Bob Smith. I'm a retired Navy captain. My last tour, I was the Assistant Chief of Naval Research at O&R. And along the way in a 30-year Navy career, the first half operating, the second half as a developer. And I have used a lot of small businesses over the years in moving programs forward. And now with Raytheon, getting involved in a lot of that again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about a O&R success story that I was the program manager for, and some of the lessons that were learned out of it that hopefully you can apply. And of course, the second part about that story is that that success is now part of Raytheon Missile Systems here in Tucson. So it's been a win-win all the way around. I'm going to go back now in time. Everybody remembers 9/11 and what happened. And at that point, there was, of course, a big mobilization of a lot of things, and one of them was the science and technology community. And immediately coming to the forefront as a requirement was a need for small tactical expeditionary unmanned aerial vehicles. We had a small SBIR program. Actually, it had just completed SBIR 1, hadn't even really gone into 2 yet. In that late 2001 timeframe. And as we did a quick look at what was out there that we thought we could move forward as a quick reaction capability, what came up was a effort that was being done by a small company here in Tucson called Advanced Ceramics Research. Now, you heard a little bit earlier today about Tony Mulligan and Emily and where that's going. Well, Tony was one of the founders of ACR, and of course along the way sold the company and all. But buried in all of that is a lesson, and we heard it earlier from a couple other speakers, and that is that if you're entrepreneurial and you're ready to put the time and the blood, sweat, and tears into it, big things can happen. So we had, to give you an idea how fast these things happen, we called through a number of programs. There actually were a couple other UAV things going on. We zeroed in on this work by Advanced Ceramics Research, as I said, just wrapping up a phase 1, looking at a phase 2, and made a quick phone call down here, came down, had a couple meetings, and within a week, we had Tony and his engineering team, his finance person, his contract person, and everybody in a conference room in Arlington at O&R. And we actually went to about 10 o'clock on an evening, complete with the way they talk about, you know, the Domino's pizza and the 2-liter bottles of Pepsi-Cola. I mean, that truthfully is exactly what happened. When we walked out of that room, we had the plans laid to kick off not only an SBIR-2, but also a quick reaction capability. So as time went on, we were actually able to deploy some prototype UAVs into theater at about 120 days out from that period. So now we're talking spring of 2002. And from there on, the program continued to grow, graduated actually past 3 and into specific small business contracts and graduated out. Along the way, there was a lot of partnership that went into this effort with primes, with Naval Air Systems Command, but all of this hinges back on the fact that the folks at ACR were leaning forward. They were, again, entrepreneurial. They were ready to bring on the right people or else work with the various primes or other expertise that was out there for communication systems, for sensors, for whatever. In fact, the University of Arizona Engineering School got pulled into it. We actually were funding U of A Engineering School, electrical engineering and mechanical, for all of our antenna systems, the ground station, pointing directions, and a lot of the autonomy software that was going into controlling the UAVs. Again, we'll fast forward. I believe we're now talking the time frame of about 2008 time frame. BAE Systems actually bought ACR and turned it into an effort under their Advanced Systems group. And because of, and this is a lesson, because there was no vision of where they were going with the military customer, they weren't thinking, how do I integrate in systems of systems for ISR and unmanned work, it floundered. They actually let the group go. It reformed itself in the same building here in Tucson on Hemisphere Loop as Sensintel Incorporated. And now because they were, again, a small business, were able to, through entrepreneurship, and the fact that, by the way, Tony was gone by then, but a lot of the same people were still there, they were able to bootstrap themselves back up. Again, back into SBIR programs. It helped them get their feet on the ground. It helped them improve their UAV systems. And as we move into about the 2014 time frame, and of course, I'm here at Raytheon by that time in Advanced Systems, we were teaming with them. So now you've got a prime teaming with the small business and working with the government customers, and again, moving a lot of these capabilities into larger architectures, larger concepts of operations, and working with more and more customers across DoD. And most of you probably know, at least if you're local, that we, Raytheon, actually bought Sensintel just about 1.5 years ago now. The closing was January of last year, of 2015. And again, we've kept on a lot of the same people, vast majority of them, good engineers, good folks, good management team. So there's a lot of potential there, but what it goes all back to is the keys to success for you as a small business. So the first thing is that you've got to know your customer base, and you've got to become their best partner. Nobody in any of the government agencies that let SBIR contracts are going to pull you along and tell you what to do. You need to be leaning forward. You need to be flexible. You need to remember that their success is your success. The more successful that you make them, the more successful you are going to be. So you have to spend time with them. You have to listen. You have to understand what they are trying to accomplish. You know, you've heard from several of the government reps today, understanding that there are a lot of people out there that build a particular EO camera or a camera with specific characteristics or capabilities. But not everybody knows how to package it. Not everybody knows how to, from a systems engineering side, dovetail it into a systems architecture and then a systems of systems architecture. So you've got to listen, you've got to understand what they are needing, because they also want to transition successful capabilities. The next thing you have to do is you have to be able to adapt. You know the old routine, not invented here syndrome, okay? As I have worked with small businesses before, it sometimes has been the hard discussion with them to say, you're a brilliant physicist, you're a brilliant engineer, but you've got to understand that the whole world uses right-hand threads in this particular application. Left may be neat, but it's not maybe the best solution, and it doesn't fit into the architecture. Maybe a bad example, but I think you follow where I'm coming from. And that leads to the ability to pivot. And this kind of, we can take back to the UAV work we did with ACR. The original UAVs weren't particularly adaptable to military use because of fragility of some of the materials, the fact that they were good aero engineers, but they didn't understand the fact that you can't take an engine that runs a two-cycle engine out to the field and operate it with the Marine Corps and Navy SEALs. You need to run four-cycle MOGAS. Perfect example. So they understood, they pivoted, we moved into the right kind of engine. But that ability to adapt and pivot is going to be critical to your success. The other thing I mentioned a little bit there was the fact that your government program managers want to transition capabilities, and they want to help you transition capabilities. But part of transitioning is you going out and understanding where, in terms of the government customer base, it transitions, and also where, in terms of major primes, is the right spot to transition that capability. We do a lot at Raytheon Advanced Missile Systems. We do a fair amount, in fact, a lot of business with SBIRs that are transitioning. We like to do that. We want to work with you. We're not out to steal IP. We're not out to remove from you good ideas. What we want to do is we want to work with you, because a lot of times that short list in our Rolodex, those go-to people, are small businesses, because they are innovative and they are flexible. The next thing that I want you to keep in mind, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, is system of systems. The camera goes into something that the camera is mounted on, the UAV. The UAV fits into a larger command and control architecture, which goes into a larger intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance architecture, which goes into another architecture above that. The more you understand that, and the more you think about that, the easier it is for you to sell your programs and get them transitioned and get them out. So now, let's say you found your prime. You're working with me. You're on the phone with me. I was on the phone 2 days ago with a small business that is wrapping up their phase 1 at ONR, and they're getting ready. They're going to turn in their paper at the end of this month. They're already preparing their phase 2 proposal, letter of support and interest. They need that letter from Raytheon that says, hey, we like this idea. This is a good idea. We want to work with these folks. We will be your sub to help you mature it and move it forward. And we're doing that because we see in the future that we can turn that around and we can make a better missile, better capabilities, better whatever we're doing. So there's a lot of interest on the prime side to do this, but you've got to go out and find them. I had an interesting discussion at the end of our lunch with a lady from a company, and she was saying, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to be at AUVSI next week, which is the big annual International Unmanned Systems show down in New Orleans. My email is just going crazy right now with small businesses that want to set up appointments and talk. And what they want to do is they want to say, hey, I am working on this. I am looking for transition partners. I'm looking for somebody that wants to team with me to move this particular capability forward. And that's the way you're going to find those people. I'm not saying there aren't other ways, but you need to see and be seen. Go to AUVSI, go to Sea Air Space, which is in 2 weeks in Washington, D.C. Go to Air Force Association of the U.S. Army. Go to the MBDA conferences. Go, and if you're into the health side of things, go to those conferences. That's where you're going to make those connections. And it's like dating. The first 2 dates aren't necessarily going to result in much more than a casual conversation. But if you're persistent and you've got good ideas, things will happen, and as we say in the Navy, the mating dance will occur at some point, and you will marry up capabilities with systems and so forth. Lastly, do not forget that you've got to get those NDAs in place early. Again, we as primes are not interested in pilfering intellectual property. We live under the same laws as everybody else does, and we also know that when you ruin your reputation, nobody's going to want to work with you. But those NDAs are so critical because we want to be a teammate, we need teammates, and you need teammates. And in the end, you want to be on that short list. You want to be the go-to person. And we have those small companies all the time. And when we sit around and brainstorm a big DARPA program that we're getting ready to put together a proposal on and starting to shape it, we're thinking about what small businesses have the capabilities, the technologies, the flexibility, as well as potentially already a good reputation with DARPA, for instance, so that when we go into that DARPA PM, we can say, we, Raytheon, have this idea to solve your problem, and we are also using this company and this company because we need somebody who's an expert at launcher systems. We have somebody who's an expert at a particular type of communication systems or whatever. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I've got a video I'd like to show you, and the reason I'm showing you this is not to advertise Raytheon and UAVs, but this video is the two products that came out of advanced ceramics research from the time back when I was at O&R. One of them is the Silver Fox UAV, which is an expeditionary tactical UAV that's launched from land and is used extensively in theater by special operations. We've now gone over 20,000 operational hours in theater with this particular platform over the years. And the other is a UAV called Coyote. Coyote is a tube-launched UAV. If you've read any press on NOAA and hurricane tracking, Coyote is the UAV that is dropped from the NOAA WP3s into the eye of a hurricane so that they can do very finite measurements of atmospheric pressure, wind shears, temperatures, and so forth, so that they can more accurately predict hurricane strength and path. The advent of using Coyote in hurricane research, according to NOAA, has narrowed their field of regard for probabilities for storm strength and direction almost asymptotically. It's, you know, we're talking orders of magnitude in terms of greater accuracy. Coyote is also being used and will be featured in 2 weeks at Navy Sea Air Space by O&R under a major O&R program. So again, a great success for a small company here in Tucson, and you know, I couldn't be more proud of how well that has worked and how the vision of a few entrepreneurs moved this thing forward. So please, if you would. Small businesses are doing launcher systems, the parachute drone systems on this, and we're working with another small business right now to manufacturing of wings. We also use small businesses with the Silver Fox for production of some of the components. There you go. Like I said, not an advertisement for the company, but more for the fact that that's where something can go that starts out as a small study. So thank you very much. And by the way, if there's any questions,